Well, hello and welcome to Antique Needleworkers. My name is Shellie and this is my channel about cross stitch and all my crafty endeavors. And I'm so glad that you've joined me here today. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by. And if you're a return subscriber, thank you for coming time and time again. I appreciate it so much. Well, hello, my sweet friends. I am fresh home from being on the prairie out in Oklahoma, and I've come here today to share a recap of my retreat and tell you all the things and show you all the gifts and show you the haul that I purchased while I was at Prairie Moon Primitives this last week. What a joy, what a joy. I have to say, I went and I came home with so much more than I gave. Let me just say that my heart is overflowing to the brim, and I miss everybody there already. And so last week, Easter Sunday, we got in the car and began to drive out to Oklahoma. We celebrated Easter on Saturday because we knew that the drive would take us about a day and a half, 2 days. And so we headed out and we left Cincinnati and we got about 2 hours in, and my brand new car decided it was going to throw every code in the planet. Oh my. So we limped home. We did make it home. I made phone calls to the children and said, somebody may need to have to grab our truck and double up and meet us on the side of the road. And so anyhow, we made it back to the house, and we, thank goodness, my husband's truck has a tonneau cover. It keeps it high and dry back there. And I had that Suburban filled from the back of the front seats all the way to the tailgate. So we made quick work of it, and we put everything in the truck, and we're merrily back on our way. And, you know, no worse for the wear. You know, things happen, and we're pretty flexible. So we got going, and we got almost to St. Louis, and St. Louis was covered in tornadoes and severe weather. So we just cut it short and stopped and had a good dinner. We were going to stop for the night anyway, but we would have driven a long bit farther because we were driving to 100 miles shy of Texas from Ohio. So we would have gone a little bit farther than that. But so we had a really great dinner, and then we stopped at a hotel and just hung out and for the night. I mean, I think we pulled off the road, I want to say it was like 8 something. So, you know, we got a way in. And so we did all that. Everything was fantastic. We got up the next day and we pulled the haul the rest of the way in on Monday. Got all hooked up at the hotel and got comfortable, had some dinner, and then the following morning, I told my husband, since he drove all that way, I said, I'm gonna go to the shop and set up because the retreat started on Wednesday. So I had to be there Tuesday to set up all the trunk show and all my pop-up shop and get everything set up. You know, you can't just show up on the day of. So I had my computers to set up, and I brought a projector and a screen because I did a PowerPoint presentation. And so anyway, I told him, I said, I'm going to the shop. I won't be long. And so, yeah, I got there, not too many minutes past opening time, and I got back to the hotel at 5. Oh my goodness. I went and sat up and got everything put together and talked to the wonderful owner, Ginger Jackson of Prairie Moon Primitives, and her helpers, Vanessa Vantreese and Patty, and her daughter, Jen, who helps her. It was just wonderful. There were people that came and went, but really got to spend some quality time with them prior to, and it was just so wonderful. And I had not been in the shop before, and might I just say, I almost fell over when I pulled in the driveway because, first of all, I was in the country. And so I loved it. You know, I'm a country girl. I was raised on a farm and all that stuff. So when I pulled up, it's in the middle of the prairie for real. And when I pulled up, you have to go through a cattle gate and then you pull on down the driveway. Well, the cattle were switching fields. And so there were a couple herds of cows that came lovingly, loppingly across that driveway. And I couldn't have had a more Shellie Fry welcoming committee in the planet Earth. I was so excited just pulling up that I almost could have just stayed in the front yard in the pasture for the whole day. I opened the windows and all the baby calves, there were baby calves everywhere, and they came up to the window. And one, I reached out and he gave me a lick, and oh my gosh, I walked in and I said, I want to move in. So that was just so neat, that, you know, that you came down this prairie and pasture, and then there was the big shop back there. And boy, oh boy, you know, a little story, you know, I'm going to put an insert. I did a little interview with Ginger that I'm going to put later on in the video. So I don't want to say much, but so they brought in cross stitch like 2 years ago because a cross stitch shop that was near them closed, and they, from what I understand, enveloped this vibrant community of stitchers that was down there. And Stitching Gem, it's her LNS, Cross Stitching the Globe goes there. I mean, people come from all over to go to this shop. They were originally there, they had punch needle, rug hooking, rug punch, quilting, wool applique. I mean, when I walked in, I was like, I mean, it was just amazing. I think she has like 8,000 square foot of just stuff on display. It was just amazing. 10,000 square feet. I can't remember. It was a big old place, and it was just amazing. And so I got to spend the day. My husband checked in on me. He said, I just wanted to make sure that you didn't wreck out on a country road because I thought you were coming right back. And I said, oh, well, you know how things are. And he's like, yes, just do your thing. So I spent the day Tuesday. She fed me lunch, just beautiful food. Their facility, they are set up. They have retreats of every kind there. They have stitch-in days on the regular. They have such a busy schedule of things to do. If you are ever near Wayne, Oklahoma, you need to get off the highway and go down that Prairie Road and go to Prairie Moon Primitives. You cannot, I can't say enough. I felt like I was at home the minute I walked in the door. And so then that was Tuesday, got everything all set up. And then Wednesday, the retreat began. And oh my goodness, I have the tables filled right here with gifts, things that people brought me. And I'm going to show you that. But just was so well received. And I'm excited that anyone wanted to come to this was my very first retreat as a designer, and being on the flip side of the table. And, you know, you hope that people will come. And I was just so excited to see everybody who was there, and they were so excited to see me. And the support was palpable and just beautiful. And I was so excited. And you will have seen a whole bunch of pictures that I put in the roll-in, including the class. I called it a class picture. I said, I need a picture because I will never have my first retreat ever again. And so it's very, very precious to me. And so we all went outside and did a class picture. So that was a lot of fun. So on that note, before I go any farther, let's segment this thing. Let me show you some of the gifts that people brought for me. Okay, the first thing is I did a box with the retreat piece, the fabric, the thread, a thread board, and the pattern was in my box. And then Prairie Moon did a box, and inside of it was a beautiful, they made project bags for everyone. Vanessa Van Treese did. Then in this little pouch, everyone got handmade waxers for their threads. And then they made little Ort bowls for everybody. And then you got this little retreat box, and inside of it were some floss drops for you, some Hershey chocolate, which I'm going to sit on the table and eat, a handmade bag bling or zipper pull, and then here was a bling with the logo for the retreat on it, and you could hang that on your thread drop. You got a nail file, which is always nice because don't you hate it? It's always that dastardly one little hang nail. And so it's always nice to have a little one of those. And then a little retreat book so that you had a blank book to fill in with friends' names or take notes or whatever. And that was also in there. And so that was very kind of them. And then I saved the one of my favorite things for last that was in our box from Ginger and the gang. And it was this little pincushion. Is this a dandy? Call Prairie Moon and buy you a dozen. I have a basket of here with 20 more of them in it because I knew the minute I got home, my granddaughter, who has learned to stitch and loves everything strawberry tomato and all the things now, has turned into her grandmother, her Mimi, was going to want not one chicken, but one of every color. And my daughter, although she doesn't stitch, she's a chicken keeper. And I thought she's going to want to steal a whole bunch of these and put them in the window. So aren't they adorable? And they have such a neat story. These little chicken pin cushions, they will make your needles very sharp because inside of them is clean play sand, and they're so good. They're packed so tight, but you just want to hold your chicken and kind of de-stress with it too. But anyway, the little chickens, they have sold thousands of these. The little lady lives in the Ozark Mountains, and she's in her 80s, and she makes these by the hundreds. And Ginger told me how many thousands of these she has sold over the time that she has been getting them from the lady. But anyway, they come in many different fabrics, which I can't help myself. I've got a herd of chickens here. I'll show you some of the other ones. I'll show you these again later. But I love these little things. They were all over the shop. They were tucked in everywhere. Aren't they just so cute? But when I spied them, and I hadn't opened my box yet, and Ginger's like, I said, oh, I've got to buy some of those chickens. She said, oh, you've got one in your box. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to need more of those. So, I mean, isn't this one chicken wire on a chicken? I mean, we were giggling. But so anyway, there are every design and of cute fabric. These would be very simple to make. I've made a big one, but these little tiny chickens, you know, everything in micro version is just amazing. And so anyway, that was what was in that box. And of course, I am totally in love with the chickens. And so that was a gift that came from Prairie Moon to each participant. And then Cindy Kiefer gave me a lovely card. And then she brought me a assortment box from Bedray, I think that's how you pronounce it, Bedray chocolates. You know, it's been a real act of discipline not to bust into this box of chocolate because my husband's a chocoholic and I wanted to try it, but I saved it so I could show it to you. She brought me these lovely and said, here is a Oklahoma welcome to you. So those are real Oklahoma chocolates. The wildflower stitcher was there. By the way, let me just mention some of the Flosstubers who were there. Stitching by the Brook. Brooke Purdom was there. Amy Strickland, always Amy, was there. Stitching Gem, Anise was there. And the wildflower stitcher, Krista, was there. Krista brought me this. Is this not beautiful? And she's put a magnet in the bottom of it. And I said to her, you've got to be kidding me. These enameled boxes, I collect these, but I specifically have all the birds, and all my kids hunt them down and of course go to Cracker Barrel, where is a big place to get them. But she brought me this beautiful ornate enamelware box. Isn't that beautiful? What a nice gift. Thank you so much, Krista. Thank you so much to everyone who gave me lovely, lovely gifts. Angela was a participant, and she brought me some homemade peach jam. Yum. And then also, her husband works at a plant where they make poly pellets. They take the they recycle plastics, and then they turn them into the poly pellets. That they're not white like Pellon poly pellets, because they are they're recycled. Oh, I'm gonna try to show you there. That's the best I can do without putting them all over the room. But she brought everybody a bag of poly pellets, which was very nice, because you know, that's a great way to, if you someone had told me that it may have been Angela, that she had an allergy. Somebody had an allergy to walnut, crushed up walnut shells. And so this, the poly pellets, if you are a packer like me, I use wool from my sheep, and I use crushed up walnut shells to give it a little heft, but poly pellets. But so anyway, I think there's a link. I'm going to look this up. I think this may just be a link for hers. But anyhow, her husband makes these. That's what he does for a living. That's so cool. He works at a recycling plant. Very neat. Another lady brought an antique container full of vintage threads, and we all got to pick some antique threads. I thought these were really pretty. Very neat. And then someone brought some zipper pulls that we could choose from, and also a needle minder. So one's for me, one's for Carrie. I picked us pink, that way Carrie got pink. And so those are lovely. Let me, really pretty, pretty, pretty. And then a beautiful lady named Velvet. Her husband is a caramel maker extraordinaire, and she brought me a bag of caramels and made this sweet little chicken runner to sit at your table. And then she also made a chicken ort box. Very sweet. Thank you, Velvet. More candy to get a hold of. And then a sweet, sweet lady named Kay, who I can't wait to tell you another little thing about later. She brought me some handcrafted soap, and it smells so good, and it's called Date Night. I think I'm gonna get a date. And then these were also handed around, and they had candy in them. I did eat some of the candy out of one of them. That was very kind. Another participant, this is a little book, some tissues, and then, isn't that sweet, a little button pin that she crocheted and put a vintage button. I think she set out of her grandmother's or her mother's buttons out of her sewing box. And then Ginger gifted me this. Do you know the old pot holder looms? They have been making pot holders with these jumbo new looms, and I think they did a class as well. And so Ginger gifted me a full kit, and I am excited to do that. I have some vintage ones of these, but they showed these to me, and they were nice and big, and so this was a really, thanks, Ginge, that was such a nice gift. And then one of the ladies took some old photos from she had purchased at the thrift store, and she punched holes in them and made thread boards, and we could pick whichever one we wanted. Are those not neat? What a neat way to repurpose that. I chose this. I said, that's me and Gary. So, but there were some really beautiful ladies that sit in very beautiful positions with lovely hairdos, and people were choosing those for one reason or another, but they were just so cute. I chose mine. I said, oh, look, there's me and Gary. And then a sweet lady named Jenny went around, and this was a great little table gift idea. She gave a little bulb pin with 2025 tags on it, so you would have them to put on your smalls. So thank you, Jenny. And then Michelle Pilgrim, my sweet friend, she came all the way down from Nebraska, and she brought me a box of Nebraska candies. So thoughtful. I'm going to need the treadmill and kettlebells really bad with all the candy. But then she brought me this very thoughtful gift, and I am really excited to share this with you. She brought me this seashell bag because she said she thought I needed a special bag to take a project to my Florida house with, and I thought that was so neat. And I told her something that I don't know if I've told it on here or not, but all throughout my house here in Ohio and in Florida, I have, now you would expect it down in the Florida house, but in the most random places, if you go through the house, you will find shells and beautiful shells. I collect them, obviously. My name's Shellie. My name's actually Michelle Lee. And, but anyway, so I told her, I said, I love that because I love beautiful shells. But I realized there was something else in the bag. So I opened it up, and to hang in the mill, she brought an antique baby dress. Isn't that the sweetest? And in Honey's room right over here, I do have a rack, and I have baby dresses like this, antique vintage baby dresses hanging in there. So after this video, I'll get to put that in there. But then, this was my favorite of all the things. She brought me this teeny tiny antique daily devotional. I mean, look here. It's called Daily Food, I Am the Bread of Life. And it says Daily Food for Christians, Promise, and another scriptural portion with verses of hymns for every day of the year. And it was to Minnie B. It was a gift. No, it was to Aunt Eliza from your loving niece, Minnie B., Kansas, 1908. Is that not the neatest thing? I'm like, where am I going to put this? So this will be with me wherever I am. I love this, and thank you. What a neat and thoughtful gift. I appreciate that so much, Michelle. I'm going to think of you every single day when I use my little devotional. And then a sweet gem from Stitching Gems. She made me a sweet bag, and if you notice, there's butterflies. And the butterflies are her favorite color, yellow. If you know Gem, you know that she loves yellow, but it looks like a prairie full of butterflies, doesn't it? It's so sweet. I love that. Thank you, Gem. And then Brooke Purdom, Stitching by the Brook. She stitched this project bag for me. She said it reminded her of me, and it has this beautiful bling. It is just so, so pretty. Look at that. I mean, there's nothing about this that I'm just in love with it. It's so pretty. But she didn't just remember me. She remembered Carrie. And I have Carrie's bag. Carrie will be here for StitchCon, so she'll get her bag. But she made hers bright and bold and beautiful. And then she even put big and bright and swirly pink inside. So thank you, Brooke, for mine and for Carrie's. And Carrie is doing much better. I think you'll notice that you would have seen last week that at the beginning of the week, I was so excited because she did some reels and in her stories, and she finally looked like her bouncy self. So I think she's on the mend completely. So I'm excited about that. And then Robin Gibbons, sweet, sweet, precious Robin Gibbons, created this beautiful basket of one of everything for me. And inside of this, she made this little jar of handmade tiny waxers. And I thought these were so cute. Look how tiny they're all tiny little fruits. But the whole jar is filled with there's little bees. They're just the right size. You could throw them in one of these little tins with a magnet in it and a needle. And I mean, you're off and running. So there's cherries and raspberries and bees and all the things. It's just a jar full of these miniature cute little waxers, and I said to her, oh, I'm gonna have to share that with my granddaughter because she loves everything miniature. Now that she's a stitcher, she's gonna want all the things. So she came back with one for Veda. So Veda, Mimi has one for you too. And then she put in here some Sophia's Judgments, you know, from the Golden Girls. That's so funny. Some twistable colored pencils. And then a pad that says, when friendship it says all kind of things about friendship on it. And it's a plain pad of paper so I could take notes. And then a beautiful journal and big, beautiful pen with butterfly on it. Isn't that sweet? And then a modern quilting coloring book. Oops, I love this. This is so neat. Hence the colored pencils. And then she paper crafted and put this beautiful pen and paper crafted pen holder in there. And then this is a butterfly table runner. And I gotta tell you, Robin, I'm gonna make myself a couple project bags out of this because it's so very large and I love it. But if I only have it as a table runner, it'll get put away for part of the year. But if I make it a project bag, I'll see it all the time. So I think I can get several project bags out of this. So I think I'm going to use my runner, if that's okay with you, Robin, but I know it is. I'm gonna make some project bags out of that. And then she put some sweet floss drops in there with a little bling. And then she had wrapped a thread bling around the runners. So yeah, all the things. I mean, those were just gifts that were brought to me. And then as well, Ginger gave me an absolutely beautiful card at the end. And then, if that wasn't sweet enough, the entire audience of participants filled out a beautiful card and gave it to me. And I will cherish this forever in token and memory of my very first sweet retreat. And so those were all the table gifts. Oh, and then another lady, she was so sweet. Her son has a wood burning business, and this was this is a needle minder, and she made these. But I put mine on during the retreat and wore it as a pen through the retreat. So it was really kind of cool. So those are all the gifts that were brought to me. So let's go back and continue to talk about this. So that day one, I came and everybody lavished me with all of these sweet gifts. And oh my goodness, I just was so excited to be there. And the day one, the first thing I did is I debuted the retreat piece and I brought the antique with me. And then I did a PowerPoint presentation. The young lady's name on my sampler that I did for the retreat was Sarah Batt. But Batt was not her last name. She abbreviated it on her sampler for one reason or another. And it said B-A-T-T with a period. And she just stopped. I had no provenance on her. But you know, sometimes when you go to retreats and sometimes when you go in and you look at samplers or you look at patterns, you just walk right in and you're like, oh, that's a beautiful sampler. I love that. And but I wasn't just reproducing that sampler with no provenance and not saying anything. I actually saw the sampler when I purchased it, and I thought, I may not know your last name. I may not know where you came from, but her motifs were screaming. And, you know, symbolism in the time that that young lady was alive, symbolism was a very important thing. There was coats of arms, and they did things on purpose, with purpose. And they you know, anyone who's done samplers for even a half a second knows that there is symbolism behind certain colors and different motifs. And she was saying something very clearly, and I could see that. And so we turned out the lights and I went to do the PowerPoint presentation. But before we did, I said, you know, I cannot tell you really what her last name was. There's over 3,000 surnames that begin with B-A-T. And so, but what I can tell you is that she's trying to tell us something, at least I think so. And if she's not, that's okay. We had fun trying. But what I told them is I said, do you remember Nancy Drew books when you were a kid, at least when I was a kid? And I said, today we're going to put on our sleuth hats and we're going to dissect this sampler. And we did just that. And we did some surmisings. And it was just a whole lot of fun. And I had many people come up later and say, you know, when I came in and you debuted the sampler, I thought, oh, the sampler is so beautiful. But when the story was told in the concept of possibly was she saying something to us, and there was more there than just a pretty sampler, and we started peeling back the layers, it got everybody really excited, and they turned into super sleuths in many directions. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of that in a little bit. But so we did that and did the PowerPoint and really had a great first day, and then just spent the day. I tried my best. I had made it a very big point to myself that if I was going to go and do a retreat, I wanted to sculpt the way I did things, not only the way that I had ever looked at a retreat as a participant, but what is it that I can do to enrich the time that they're there. I didn't want to just stand up, give them a sampler, and then, you know, be MIA. You know, so from day one, I began to go around, and I do believe in one form or fashion or another, I got to sit, stand, or stand in a line with each and every person and just say hello, introduce myself in person, and talk to them and get to know a little bit about them. And so that was a ton of fun. So the day went on, and Ginger, beautiful food presentation every single day. There was nobody who could walk away from there hungry because we were so well fed and cared for. There were snacks abounding, always something to eat or drink or coffee or whatever, just very well taken care of. And so it was a lot of fun. And I spent that part of the afternoon continuing to go through and revisit the portions of the shop, because on day one, I went through the shop and I was like, oh my gosh. And there was just so much. And so I was very enamored by the wool room. I've been to a lot of shops that carry wool, and they do rug hooking or rug punch or things, or wool applique. And I'm not saying that there's not one, but I have never been in a place with as much wool stock on the walls. There was an entire room that was like 50 by 25, I believe Ginger said it was. And the walls, 3/4 of the way up, all the way down both sides, and then shelves down the middle that were up to my shoulders, and all the way down this row. It was mind-blowing. I've never been to a shop with that much wool to wool applique, rug hook, and all the things with. I've never seen that much. It was gobsmacking. So why don't I put a video right here and show you what it looked like. Wasn't that amazing? Have you ever seen so much wool ever? If you need a piece of hand-dyed or stock wool of any color of the rainbow, I think that Ginger and Jen have you taken care of. And that was just the wool room. And there was also the cross stitch room, the main hall, where there's massive amounts of kits for wool applique, beautiful eye candy, the quilt rooms where there's fabric and patterns and notions. Pardon me, in the cross stitch room. Oh my goodness. And they were so sweet. They took all my patterns off the wall and they said, no, we want you to have a pop-up shop and you sell your patterns while you're here. And then when you're gone, we'll put your patterns back up on the wall. Who does that? That was amazing. Very so kind of them. And so how about I drop the videos right here and you can see the rest of the shop. here with Ginger Jackson, the owner of Prairie Moon Primitives, and I wanted to take a minute to introduce you to her. And I have spent the most wonderful week at your organization here. You people are like family, and I just appreciate you so much. And I want the world, I want you, my friends, to meet my friend Ginger. So Ginger, you are in Wayne, Oklahoma. And tell me, how did you start Prairie Moon Primitives? Can you tell me a little history?
Well, first of all, I have to thank my husband for believing in me. And we had, over at the house, we would just have, we had a teacher in. Frank Billick from Trading Spaces was our first teacher.
Yeah.
And so, and then, people asked me if I could build a bunkhouse. So this is the bunkhouse. It started out as a bunkhouse, but then we had this room that we're setting in that was up my store. And then, of course, COVID hit, and then we just turned it all into a store. And now we're down the road with the
new retreat center coming up.
Yeah.
So you have a, down the street, she has a house, and it's basically the bunkhouse.
Yes.
It's the retreat house.
Yes.
And how many beds are in there?
We have 10 twin-size beds in there, and then we're building a bigger retreat barn behind it.
Yeah, so the store will be here, but there's going to be a retreat center, and we had about 40 people here this week. But tell me, next time when this comes around and your barn's done, how many people will you be able to house for a retreat?
We'll have 34 overnighters, and then we can have probably up to 48 to 50 retreaters.
Yeah. And so you started out with wool applique, right?
Wool applique and rug hooking.
And rug hooking. Oh, I just love it. And let me just tell you, you will have seen in the roll-in the most amazing wool room. I have been to many wool rooms, and outside of a distributorship, no one has as much wool as you. And you dye in-house as well.
Yes, my daughter does a lot of the dyeing. I help a little bit. I taught her how, but she's taken it over.
Yeah, and this room, how big is that wool room, do you think?
Oh, goodness. Probably about 20 by 50.
Yeah, huge. 2 sides of the room, and then 2 sides down the middle row. And just amazing what you've done out here. And I have said over and over since I've been here that, I couldn't have had a retreat, my very first retreat, at a place that I felt more at home. You plunked me in the middle of a prairie, in the middle of a cow field, and here it is. But yet they'll come. There were people from Louisiana. There was people from
Texas and Kansas.
Yeah, Texas and Kansas. All over Oklahoma were here. Louisiana was here. Just people come from all over, and you have regular events here.
Yes, we do.
Yes, and I was going to say, I won't be here tomorrow. When you see this, I'll be home. But tomorrow you have a stitch day.
Yeah, tomorrow's our cross stitch day. And then we have rug hookers meet out here. The Oklahoma Scissor Tails meet out here. Then we have free days that we call Farm Chicks, Ruffled Feathers, and Birds of a Feather.
Yeah, so you have a calendar going all the time. Is that on your website?
It should be on the website. If not, it's always on Facebook.
On social media. And Jen, and you have a great social media presence. You get on there and do sales and things like that. So if you're not following Prairie Moon Primitives on Instagram and on Facebook, you need to be. This is a beautiful place, and I did a small video, and then this video today, there's more footage and things like that, but it just feels like home, especially for the cross crafter. This room that we're sitting in is an amazing example of cross stitch, but you have cross stitch, you have punch needle, you have rug punch, you have rug hook, you have quilting, wool applique. I mean, it's just a dream for a maker out here, and it's just beautiful what you've done, and I'm so proud of you. And I wanted you to sit here. I don't want to just say Ginger's name. I want you, my friends. This is my friend Ginger. I'd like to introduce you, the owner of Prairie Moon Primitives. And if you're ever in this neck of the woods, listen, it's worth a trip out here. It is just so wonderful, and you and your staff and you're wonderful. You have a plethora, just a vibrant community of all kind of crafters, cross stitchers, and all of this that come out here on a regular, and it is just home to them.
Well, it's a blessing to us as well. We've made a lot of friends.
Yeah.
So it's really a blessing.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting it be my little home on the prairie.
Well, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on here and let me interview you a little bit.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Wasn't that a special place? It's just so neat, and to have so many different craft genres. There's something there for everyone. Cross stitch. They're bringing in Robin Givens, my friend, who I mentioned that gave me the big basket. She's going to, on May 31st, be teaching a needlepoint class down there. She has a plethora of needle point designs, and she's bringing a canvas and going to teach 13 stitches. You know, you can sign up for that. There's spaces. I keep saying, I said before I left, I need to use some of my money and go get on a plane because I want to go back. I loved needlepoint and go down for Robin's class, and it'd be another reason to go and see Ginger because I knew I was going to miss her the minute I left. So, but anyway, there's something there for everyone of every kind. And if you ever wanted to be a dabbler in all kind of things, there is cross stitch, wool applique, rug hooking, rug punch, and you never know. There will be crossfire teaching at any minute. Sit down and teach. And I actually did that myself on day 2, because on day 2, now I'll move on to that. On day 2, I came and I had a make and take for everyone. I had printed beautiful Victorian paper that you cut out into an envelope, and you used brads and beautiful silk ribbon, and we did a make and take, and I told them that they had a thread envelope. Everybody usually does an Ort bowl, and so I thought for months about what I would do. So they were really, really pretty, and everybody enjoyed that. So the first thing we did on the second day was a make and take. And then I surprised everyone, and I had a whole second kit for them because I created Sarah's smalls. And so I'm sure that you will see posts on Instagram and on Facebook. This is exclusive to the shop because it was a retreat. So go check on social media and you'll see what everything looked like. But next year, next market, you will see Sarah. She will be there and her smalls. But until then, she's exclusive to the retreat. But so I gave them a full, they went home with 2 kits and 2 patterns and a make and take, and it was sure fun. But there were some ladies there that were Ada stitchers, and there was some 1/1 in the motto, and also in some of the vining in the going around. And I ran over to Ginger and I said, I'm going to do an impromptu class because there's no reason why they should, because some of them were like, oh, well, we can't do that. And I was like, sure you can. And so I made an announcement. I said, everyone, if you're an Ada stitcher here, I ran and got some thread. I got some Ada, and I got all hooped up, and I made the announcement, and I said, everyone who's an Ada stitcher who doesn't think that they can do this, I want you to come up front, and I'm going to give you a lesson right now, and I'm going to show you how you can yourself do these things, and you can do every bit of this sampler. It was all X's. There were no specialty stitches, but back in the day, there was a time frame when Ada came out, and there was a time frame where that was all that people could get, and they were doing the specialty stitches, and they were doing the 1/1 and all of those things. And I told the same thing to our lovely participants, and I think they walked away. I ended up on the Ada that I had got from the shop, and then another one of the stitchers there said, show me on mine and show me this. And so I took their linen and I stitched on it for them so that they had their Ada, and they were able to take it home and have the example on there. But we had a group of ladies come up and they fell in lot more confident when they left, and you should, because you know, I understand there are people that prefer Ada to linen, and I think that you should do you, and you should never, ever, ever, and this is what I told them. They're like, well, you know, we miss out on things because we're just Ada stitchers. I'm like, just Ada stitchers? Come on. It's a ground fabric. You've heard me say this before. I am the friend of all stitchers. And I think it's phenomenal. I'll stitch on anything from 56, weird counts, 53s, 63s. I'll stitch on anything, 28 count, and I keep a sampler going, and I need to pull it out and work on it a little bit. I keep a sampler going. It's a giant one, by the way, and it's on Ada, and I did that on purpose because I want to be an encourager to you. I want you to know that you are not out there in stitching land by yourself, because half of the stitchers stitch on Ada and half of them stitch on linen. It's a ground fabric. It doesn't make you a better or a worse stitcher. It doesn't. And so that's why I wanted to do that, because that a little bit of defeat immediately when there's 1/1. And I was like, yeah, you can do 1/1. Let me show you how to do it. And I said, you know, let's go. I'm going to go off road with you here, even down to what kind of needle that you could choose to pierce your Ada with. And I was like, see, it's yours. Do it your way and be happy with it, and stitch comfortably and do you, and don't try to be somebody else, and don't feel like there are things that you can't do, because you can. And so that was so much fun. I love that part. I love to be hands-on, and I love to teach, and I love to be an encourager to other people, because this is supposed to be our joy. It's not a competition. And we're all learning. We learn new things every day, and we need to stay in our lane with the things that make us happy. And if that makes you happy, then you do you, and everybody else do themselves. And so so that was day 2. And so I did a little teaching, and I did a little more teaching because Amy from Always Amy Strickland, said, oh, you know, I've always wanted to learn your sock heel that you were talking about. She had told me this on day 1, that, you know, oh, I really want to see that sock heel. And I said, well, I can send you the videos where I picked up basically the way that I formulated to do the way I do, just 1 or 2 things a little different from these videos. And I said, I'll send you the videos. I said, but funny, I brought a pair of socks to knit in the car, and I was almost to the heel on the second sock. And so I went back to the hotel on night 1 and got it to the heel and set it completely up. And I got to sit there on day 2 and teach her how to knit my heel. So I didn't take her through the whole thing, but I had sent her the videos, and she's able to watch those. And I gave her the concept, and she was really excited about that. So it was a lot of fun. So there was a lot of teaching going on, and a lot of fun things, and people enjoying themselves and shopping and whatnot. And then, of course, I did shopping every day and I did not buy one cross stitch pattern. Everything I bought was not cross stitch because I brought the cross stitch. And so I bought some other things because while at a place with that much wool, why not buy a bunch? Like, I needed some more. I have a closet full. But anyway, but I did go shopping every day, and the table is covered, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. But day 3, I spent and dedicated the entire day to go to each and every person that I had not yet sat down with and talk to them and visit with them and enjoy getting to know you on the other side of the camera. There were so many wonderful stories that I got to hear when I sat with people and hear about their lives. There's a superhero there. Her name was Linda, and she heard about the shop because of me talking about it and went down there and said, I live so close to that. I think she lives in Oklahoma City. And she said, I didn't even know it was here. And she said, and how could you not know about something so amazing like this? And she told me about how she was trying to retire, but she's a dedicated eighth grade middle school math teacher in a tiny rural school, and they can't replace her, and she's committed to her community. That makes her a superhero to me because she's feeding into the lives of other people. And I heard about Lorraine Rowe, sweet Lorraine Rowe, and how she just so needed the refresh. And it was, she needed that camaraderie of being at retreat. She's a full-time caregiver for her husband who has a fatal type of dementia. And I literally was energized by her story because she talked about how the caregiving was the joy of her life, to give to this person she loves so much. And she didn't find it as a burden. She found it as a gift. And I just was just like, I just want to be around you all day long. And it was just such a blessing. And I just love her so much for sharing that story in her life. And then Michelle Pilgrim, I was so excited that she came all the way from Nebraska. And Robin, Lorraine, and Michelle and I are all doing a sal together. I jumped in on their sal, and you might have seen that on social media. I'm going to do another video later on this week or the beginning of next week and show you what I've been stitching on, and you'll see that. But Michelle was telling me how she made it to Nebraska. She was out west, in Wyoming or Montana, one of the two, and made her way. Her and her husband found a town in Nebraska, and they just felt like that's where their lives were supposed to be. And it was just so neat listening to her story. And she lives in an antique house, and she was saying how just very similar she is to my husband, and I loves antiques and things like that. And they raised animals in their house, out west. And she said that she was telling me about 3 little girls in her neighborhood, and they just kind of don't have that great of a home life. And the 3 of them have made it down to, they call her the little old lady on the corner. Now, mind you, she's not a little old lady. We're about the same age, if not the same age. And, but I feel like the little old lady down the street too. But they call her that, and she has begun to sit with them and teach them to stitch. And it's their little safe place where they go to get away from the chaos of their homes. And she's been gone from teaching them stitching, and she showed me pictures of them. It just warmed my heart. She even talks to them about, so one of them's a little hyper, and so she discussed to her about how much sugar she was eating, and now they're all sticking together. You're eating too much sugar, and sticking, and just the way that stitching is touching the little lives of little children. And, I got to know these things about people by going around the room, and it was just so sweet. And I enjoyed that part of the retreat so much. It energized me, and everyone gave so much more back to me than I feel like that I brought to them. It was a wonderful time, and I was so glad to get to meet everyone there. There was a sweet lady named Kay who actually, it was so neat. She had my Mary Cook pattern in her hands, and she said, I'm an educator. And she was reading the motto on there. It says, make Mary's choice be mine. And it goes through it, and it got to the bottom, and she's like, this bottom sentence of her motto, just I'll put it right here and you can read it. Okay, so she said, there's just something that doesn't make sense. And then she said, we just kept talking about it. And remember, I told you the Nancy Drew thing? Well, Kay became a Nancy Drew. And if you go back and look at the verse and you read what it says, make Mary's choice be mine, and you go through it, the verse is about Martha and Mary, the sisters of Lazarus. Mary sat at Jesus's feet, but Martha was busy. She unraveled the whole verse on the sampler, and it blew my mind because it didn't even occur to me, and I reproduced it. But I had no provenance for Mary Cook, but I thought the verse was great, but I didn't get that deep into it. And so I turned somebody into a super sleuth. That was so cool, Kay, when you did that. And so that wraps up all the doings of retreat. And I'm going to show you the things I bought. Like I said, I bought a ton of wool and wool kits. Now, I'm just going to tell you, this bag right here is all filled with wool kits. Like, they look like this. And I bought it, I know it looks like I bought a ton. See, these are the same, everything in the bags, a whole ton of it. I bought 2 of everything, and I'll tell you why. My sweet granddaughter, she has definitely turned into a consummate stitcher like us, and she has fallen in love with strawberries and tomatoes like all of us generally do. And so I went through and I found every strawberry thing and bought the kit twice. I bought 1 pattern in the kit twice of everything, of all this wool applique. And I may not do it on a mat. I may make her a project bag and stick that strawberry on there. Are these not adorable? And possibly maybe I could get her to learn to do these. She will love that ladybug too. And this reminds me of Emily Call. Hi, Emily, my sweet friend. And Veda loves Emily's designs. This little mat here, I'm not going to do it as a mat. I'm going to cut the end straight and fold it and make a sewing pocket. And then instead of putting the strawberries there, I'll keep the strawberries and that be the pocket, the top of the pocket. But I'm going to take these strawberries and I will put them on the back. So the front scallop where you open the pocket has strawberries on it, but on the back, it'll have strawberries there. So wouldn't that be cool? See, you can buy things and they don't have to always be what it shows it. But I thought that mat's just big enough that instead of scalloping that in, if you cut it straight across, fold it up and sew the 2 sides and fold it down, you've got a sewing pocket. So I thought Sissy will love that. I bought this as well. I couldn't help myself. She had all of Primitive Gatherings. She had So Cherished. And these, I mean, these are beautiful. These Rebecca's patterns. This was on the wall in the quilt room. And I'm sure you saw it because I panned it. And I just kept walking by. And I kept saying, I've got to have those. I've got to have those. I have this tray. And I have done one of these, and you magnetize the back of the mat and it sticks to the tray. So I got this one to do a second one. Look at the flag and the sheep and the willow tree. Is that not adorable? I just love it. And then little needle sewing poke. Look at this. Is that not adorable? And see, it's got strawberries, but you can stick this on the side of the wall or someplace or just on your stitching station. I got some more. I got these needle books. I thought these would be pretty to wool applique because I know, I mean, my granddaughter, it's a real thing. And you tell Mimi that you want to be a stitcher, I'm going to stitch you everything. And then also maybe I'll get her to learn, is this not cute? This is Clipboard Cuties. Just adorable. It's Clipboard Cuties February. Buttermilk basin. And then I bought this chicken. They had some of these chickens sewn sitting there. And I was like, I've got to sew that chicken. And it's a Bunny Hill Designs. And then I got another woolly pocket. It was hanging up next to those other ones in the quilt room. And it was just, I was like, God, these are just so cute. And then I bought a punch needle. And this is Prairie Moon Primitives punch needle. Isn't that beautiful? I love her barn. That's really the barn at Prairie Moon Primitives that the shop is in. So pretty. And then I bought this pattern to do they're called fruit salad pin cushions. There's watermelons and strawberries. So I knew the granddaughter might love these, and these are to quilt. And this is by Miss Rosie's Quilt Co. Fruit Salad Pincushions. Okay. And then I bought 2 more patterns, and one is, this is at your fingertips. This is, you use have you ever seen the little clear acrylic 5x7? You can get them at the dollar store. They're a little 5x7 picture frame. It just kind of goes up and you can slide the picture behind it. It's got a kick out leg. Well, you can take and make this. And I've seen these at StitchCon about a year ago. And you can sit them right there at your table. And it's called the Quilt Company Designs by Karen Montgomery at Your Fingertips is what it's called. And it shows the acrylic frame. And then you just make this and slide this right over top of it. And then right at your fingertips. And like I said, I saw this at StitchCon last year. And this is another Karen Montgomery, the Quilt Company's patterns. And it's a trendy tote. And I just thought it was so cute. I have a pattern for something like this, but I love the one with the top knot. And it was just a $4 pattern. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get the pattern so that I can make that way. And so I bought a bunch of patterns. I bought a couple retreat shirts. Had these there. And then I bought this one. So I'd have one with long sleeves and one with short sleeves. And then I bought this nifty little tool. Now, we ran her out, but I know she's going to get more. So here's the deal. If you think this is cool, I got up and I did a Vanna White. I was like, everybody needs to go buy one of these. And they did. And they bought her out. Look at this. This little carousel, it looks like the bobbins, you know, to bobbinate. But you don't take those out. You can sit this on the table next to you. What you do is you take a bobbin, knitted bobbin with a little thread on it, and you just turn it sideways and slide it between there. And it's a little bobbinator carousel to sit next to you. This is the cutest thing ever. The lady who made the little needle binder that I stuck on my shirt and wore as a pin, her son, he makes a bunch of wood items for them at Prairie Moon, and this was the coolest thing ever. Now, I know as of Saturday, she didn't have any more of these, but I think she's getting more. And so you can always call down to Prairie Moon, and I will put all the details in the description box for you and tell them you want the little carousel for the bobbins. That was so neat. Love that. And then I did go into the quilt room and I bought a little bit of fabric. I bought Goodnight Irene 1890 to 1920 by Betsy Chuchin. It's so pretty. Look at these colors. They're blues and pinks and greens. And I bought all of these fabrics that I'm going to show you right now. I bought these for a purpose. I've showed you that I have a little bag that I carry with me in the car, and I'm doing just the, they're not even an inch. They're like 3/4 of an inch or 7/8 or, and I'm doing English paper piecing flowers. But on that, I'm also going, that quilt, I'm going to applique the flowers onto big blocks, but I'm also going to applique stars and Ohio stars. And so I wanted to get a little bit more fabric because the fabric that I had was cut down for those because it was just, I used a little, the little 2.5 by 2.5 blocks to do that. So I bought some fat quarters as well, because it's all red, white, and blues, but it's vintage red, white, and blues. Very prim red, white, and blues. Not bright. Three Sisters is, I think it's Snowden is what I'm using that I cut up for the flowers. but I thought, look at this. I have this in another pattern, too, another color. Look at those antique baskets. Are those the cutest? So I bought those. And then Red and White Gatherings by Primitive Gatherings. I have Primitive Gatherings red and white book. I bought it when I was up there. And funny enough, the backing fabric that I'm going to use to mount those blocks on, oh, I can't remember which one it is. It's in this pack. And but I got it across the room. But anyway, these are reds and creams. It's Red and White Gatherings by Primitive Gatherings, but it's very primish. I just love this. So I bought these fabrics to add to for the other two blocks, types of blocks that I'm English paper piecing. I'm going to English paper piece all of the Ohio stars, the stars, the other star block. I can't remember, I think I just got a 6-pointed star, not a Lemoyne star, papers to do that. So it'll have Ohio stars because I'm an Ohio girl. And then it'll have the hexagon flowers and then the stars. And then I'm going to applique them onto a block and then sash them all together. Maybe I'll sash them together, maybe I won't. But I'm going to stick them together and it's going to be a quilt for myself. And all of these fabrics I purchased specifically. Can you believe that I didn't just buy it on a whim? I bought it because I needed it. Not that I need it. Oh my gosh. I need nothing. We all know that. But I needed that to accomplish what I needed to do. And then I bought some of this Jane Austen fabric. She actually bought the bolt of this because of Jem. Jem loves yellow and can you order that fabric? So she got a bolt. And I said, I better buy some of it to help her to sell some of it. And then I got, this was another fabric that I picked up. And it's wording all over it. And flowers always and always, into the garden I go to lose my mind and find my soul. I must have flowers, always, always, into the garden I go. Flowers lift the spirit and refresh the soul. How lovely the silence of growing things. Flowers lift the spirit and refresh the soul. I thought that was cool. So I thought this might be another good, because I didn't buy any in-betweens with the blues. So this is more of a background, a secondary for my blues because it's in blue. So I bought that for that. And then is this not very, very, very pretty? This is Jane Austen's house. Isn't that beautiful? And she has plenty of this. I bought 4 yards of it because I was like, okay, we always need sampler fabric. So, I mean, even if I just put this on a table when I did a trunk show or something, but I will be making something with it. But I bought 4 yards of this. And this, let me read the thing again to make sure. It's Riley Blake, and it's Pride and Prejudice. And this one is Jane Austen's house. So I love this. This is just so pretty. I think Jim may have had something to do with that too. And then this is some duck cloth that I thought was really, really cute to make gifts, maybe line bags with, or make a bag with. They had a little bag, I think it was like a knitting bag or a ditty bag made from this, but it just has all these old-fashioned little like little cards. Or you know what you could do is you could take pieces of this and you could cut individual squares out and Mod Podge them onto things. Would that not be cute? Be very, very cute. And so those are some of the things I bought. I did buy this wool piece. She sells her wool by the pound. It's just so cool. But this is one fabrics like this. I love when I'm rug hooking or wool appliquing. This makes great tomato fabric. So just so pretty. So I bought that and I'm almost done. I've almost reached the bottom of the pile. So Ginger gave me this. One of the people who come to the shop, their child throws pottery, and she has these miniature little, it's a yarn bowl, but you can put your Valdani balls in it to punch needle. Is that not cool? I thought it would also be neat for when I'm using a mini skein to knit. If I had I balled it up, or crochet, the little mini skeins are tiny and it'd fit just in this little bowl. So very cool. And then I bought a whole bunch of these wool felted red balls. I want to make some little pin cushions and salt cellars. And then of course, all my chickens, but I bought this basket. Of course I bought a basket. Look how the rods right here are held on by safety pins. Is that not, it's just like how you would see at your grandma's house or something. But I love this basket, and I'm going to use this for hand piecing. I'm going to put my thread right there. Isn't it cute? I know I don't need any more baskets. It's okay. It's all right. I needed another basket. And so those are all the things I bought. Those are all the gifts that were given me. That's the overview of everything that we did, and it was a beautiful week. I was refreshed, I was energized, and I was blessed to pieces by you, my sweet audience that showed up and came to the retreat, and it was just wonderful. And Mrs. Ginger Jackson is one of the kindest and most hospitable hostesses. And if you are ever able to go to any of her stitch-ins, they have regular stitch-ins. Oh, I forgot to show you 3 things. I had them under the corner here. Wait just a second. They have this big thing over the register, and one of the ladies, Jenny, who gave the tags for the 2025 tags, she was the stitcher who did this. This is called Here a Chick, There a Chick, and this is just 3, I think, of the 6 patterns, but there were 6 patterns, and she did a whole huge wall hanging, and it hangs in the shop over the over where the register is. These are by All Through the Night, and these 2 big kits right here are the wool for me to do those. But I bought those. It said Stitching Chicks, which is what I think met on Saturday. That's where they come and they stitch on a Saturday and bring their lunch and everything. But she made a Stitching Chicks big banner, and she used these, and it was just adorable. But I knew I had to buy 2 of these and do 2 of them, 2 banners, because my daughter would come in my house and steal it off the wall because she loves chickens. So, but back to what I was saying. If you're ever out near Wayne, Oklahoma, do check the schedule. Watch Facebook. Ginger and her daughter Jen get on there, and they have sales online on Facebook, live sales, and they show things. So if you're not there, you can see some things that they have. They have things going at, I mean, all the time, of every nature, and you just really want to get out there and visit. And I am just so grateful to Vanessa, who suggested. She helps with the quilting, and she helps events, and helps and works at the shop with Ginger. And I thank you, Vanessa. I thank you for that idea that you gave to Ginger and inviting me out there. It was my honor and my pleasure, and it was a treasure to me. And I hope that you enjoyed hearing all about that today. I'm so grateful that you stopped in here and spent some time with me, and to hear all about that. I will be back shortly. It's going to be within the next 7 days, because I'll come back and show you what I've been stitching on. I did have a finish, and I fully finished it. It's a small, but obviously with everything that's been going on, I still stitched, you know, my private stitching that I can show you that's not part of upcoming patterns. And I do have speaking of new patterns, I have a new pattern that I'm going to release, and I think it's going to be next week. I was hoping to have it out this week, but It is the next BE, but you're going to have the availability to get a whole kit from me. I have the fabric, and Val Donnie has done. I partnered with them, and I have used their threads, and I'm going to have thread packs. Jersey Girl Stitch Co. has made pins, and I'll have the pattern, and you'll be able to get everything. But the threads are coming from Canada, and unfortunately, they're not here yet. And so at the minute that the threads get here, I have everything else all ready to go. You'll be able to purchase that. I took it's Be Ye Brave is the next Be Ye, and I took it to Oklahoma with me, and everyone got to see it there. So I cannot wait to share it with you, but I will wait until the threads come, and as soon as they get there, listen, watch my social media, because I'm going to pop it right on the website, and there'll be a drop down, and you'll be able to have all the choices, and I'm excited to share it with you. It was a joy to design, and it has a lot of meaning in my heart behind it, and I'm sure that you can kind of figure it out, and so I can't wait to share it with you. But I will be back with a regular floss tube in the next week, and we'll catch up on what I've been doing. But I think that'll do it for now today, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for supporting my channel always, and always encouraging me. I thank you for all your kind comments. I do hope that you will like and subscribe. And until we meet again, I wish you many happy stitches. Bye-bye now, my friends.